3 minutes past 11. Jovan, I think we should start.
Yes,
with the webinar.
I agree.
All right. Are we in live already?
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really glad that I can welcome you to our first IDIS webinar. My name is Klemen Belec, and I wish you a warm welcome on behalf of IDIS Association. This is our first webinar in a row, and I believe the proposed topics is interesting and actual, and will bring new information and findings to you. There will be more opening, more webinars following this one, and on following interesting topics. And I already welcoming you to follow us further on. We have today with us 3 renowned panelists coming from different areas, each one of them with its own background and experience. A special thanks to them that they accepted our invitation and are today here with us sharing their thoughts and experiences. And last but not least, recently we have introduced IDIS LinkedIn channel where we publish news, interviews, important announcements, also webinar announcements, and I welcome you all to join and follow us on LinkedIn. So having said that, I hand over to Mr. Jovan Vujasinovic, which is our moderator for today's webinar. Thank you from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Belec. Greetings to everybody and welcome to the webinar. Today we mark 10 years anniversary of the IDIS Association. Also 10 years have passed since the European Commission defined the third energy package and launched the standardization mandate M441, which started the massive rollout in European Union. So today we want to discuss the current state of smart metering in general, and especially from the aspect of standardization, what has been done, what is good, what could have been better, and how can be improved in the future. Through the decade, IDIS Association has developed 3 packages for smart metering. The primary purpose of these packages is interoperability, or the exchange of information between devices of different manufacturers for smart metering. While the IDIS Association operates as the leader in smart metering standardization, there are challenges to overcome. Some of them are issues with manufacturers, utilities, and legislators, different standards in European states, certification process, and developing a universal standard for the EU market. Yet the challenge we have to overcome is the mass implementation of smart metering standards. So developing a universal standard is probably the most interesting issue. With the universal standard, the possibilities for innovation are endless. It opens a chance for sustainable development, and it gives us a chance to experience the future with the smart cities. These are the topics we are going to cover in today's webinar. Please welcome our guests, Mr. Ciril Kafol, Network Director of Electro Gorenska, Mr. Milan Kozole, Chairman of the Technical Board of DLMS User Association, and Mr. Brunner, former President of the IDIS Association. These are the people who have influenced the past and who are shaping the future of European technology. Thank you for joining us today. I will now start with a question for our guests. I would like to encourage the audience to ask questions during this webinar in the chat section of the Zoom. And we will try to spend a maximum 45 minutes for this webinar. First question. Do you think this universally applicable IDIS companion specification standard that could be exclusive for all countries would make life easier on a global scale as well as on an everyday level. I suggest to Mr. Kafol to give us first his opinion.
Thank you, Jovan. From the perspective of the utility and of the network, we think this is a very good idea to have, let's say, a common standard, common understanding of how to approach the matters. So as far as we are concerned, we are welcoming this. We have also specified this about 10 years ago when we basically started the project of AMI, and we are currently at the end of it. So we think this would much help and endorse the need of AMI, and it will speed up the process. That's definitely what we think. Thank you.
Okay, but Mr. Kafol, you spent one part of your business career on the utility side, but also you spent the other part on manufacturer side. Does the answer to this question depend on whether you are a manufacturer or utility? Or does it depend on the side of the organization?
Yes, basically it does. Because on one side, if you are the manufacturer and you have, let's say, a certain standard, then you prevent other manufacturers entering this area or region of yours. So in that sense, you're kind of protected in this way. But from the utility side, basically what we need is as much interoperability as necessary, because then we are able to choose from many manufacturers in the same manner. But I think the bigger let's say states or the bigger projects are very much let's say in the manufacturer's interest to not to really be very interoperable, yeah, because when you start this, then you're proceeding with the project on. Yeah, it has also its benefits, but I think for the small utilities, it's very important that the interoperability is in place.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kozole, what is your opinion on this question? And what do you think, could we arrange one standard for all European countries?
Jovan, thank you for inviting me for this webinar. I believe that the universal standard is something that can be considered when it is universally adopted. But essentially, IDIS companion specification already makes life easier with many benefits to the users as it is. So the question is how to achieve universally adopted specification. The famous IDIS slogan, closing the gap, actually means that the life is easier when we want to do the integration of the technologies. And this integration is in many aspects, in cost, in time, in risks. All those aspects are important when we speak about benefits. But at the end, it is coming to the two things. One is to have interoperable devices. To achieve this interoperable devices, we have to use two things. First, we have to use standards, and then we have to use companion specifications which make selections from the standards. And here, I believe we already have a standard which is global and is widely adopted. It's DLMS COSEM, or more precisely IEC 62056 DLMS COSEM suite international standard. But so we can say that actually companion specification, which in this case is IDIS companion specification, actually is standing on the shoulders of the DLMS COSEN. And to be really interoperable, both things are needed. So we need standards and we need companion specifications. Said this, it is a question how to achieve universally adopted companion specification. This is for me the question.
Okay, thank you very much. And that question I would like to address to Mr. Brunner.
Yeah, Jovan, thank you for inviting me to this call. And it's indeed an interesting question, because we started 10 years ago with the question in mind, as Mr. Ciril Kafol just said, the manufacturers, if they open standards, if they follow standards, then they invite also the other competitors into the same business, right? So there has been at the beginning of our journey, long discussions with customers and with other manufacturers about, does it make sense? Is it good? Is it needed? And I think the time has proven with all the projects which you see around the world that there is a huge need for a standard who gives the possibility for all customers to have a bigger choice. Also for the manufacturers to be able to produce for other areas than just the normal home areas where they are. Because if you don't have a standard, you do everything yourself from scratch again and again. And I think meanwhile, after 10 years, most of the companies, most of the utilities have understood that the way to go is looking for some good standardization all over. And I think, yes, it would help quite a lot if these standards get more and more adopted globally. And as we know, a standard only becomes a standard if the people, if the companies, if the customers are using it. So I think it's the right way to go. And it's a good opportunity for IDIS to prove with the history that it's a good standard, it's working, it's open, it's transparent, and it's the way forward.
Okay, but we hear that generally we have the standard, but the main question is how to achieve the massive application of that standard on the field. And sometimes it seems that some companies prefer to have their own protocol than to implement a general standard. And how to motivate the companies to implement standard, example, IDIS specification. What the motivation of founders of IDIS Association to
be quite clear, the motivation for companies is business. If you see and understand that with an open standard, you can address much more business, you get much more bigger part of the cake, then you will do this, right? If you believe that if you close down narrow and have your own standard, that you can do more business, then you won't go for an open standard. That's the choice of the manufacturers. And I think how to motivate is basically, we only can talk about the success stories. The customers can show their demand for open interoperable standards, that they don't go for closed systems. That's the only way you can do those things, right? And for us to do more on the information side, getting the things out for the information's out for customers and other suppliers. When you look back, we had the same situation at the beginning of the personal computer area, right? Where everybody had his own standards. And when IBM understood and learned that if everybody has his own standards, nobody will develop any special functions for them. And they started to open up and give the specification onto the free market. Then the PC market started to happen. And I think It's kind of the same in our business, but we need to have these open and transparent standards. They're also, you need to earn the trust that it's open and transparent. And we need to, as you say, to motivate customers, that's what we can do, to ask for those open and transparent standards and show them what they profit out of it. The manufacturer will follow as soon as they understand there is a bigger business opportunity to follow standards than without following standards.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe that we can agree that the answer on this question is yes, and that our recommendation for all companies, independent of their size or are they manufacturer or utility, to use open standard, because on that way all companies will have more opportunities for their business and for their future. Okay, then we can continue with the next question. What are the main reasons why the universal standard has not been achieved in the past, and how to achieve it in the future? Maybe first, Mr. Kozole. Okay, sorry, we have some interruption, but now, Mr. Kozole, please.
It was just a minute of interruption. Can you please repeat?
What are the main reasons why the universal standard has not been achieved in the past, and how to achieve it in the future?
Yes, as said before, we have a global smart metering standard, namely DLMS co-samsut. It is now really global. It is also adopted and recognized in US as ANSI standards in the C12 set of standards. But this is not enough, because if we see today how the situation is, we have numerous companion specifications which use DLMS COSAM, and these numerous companion specifications, I can just name some of them: Dutch smart metering DSMR, French smart metering Linky specification, Spanish smart metering Prime specification, or UK smart metering GBCS. These are just few of them which are using the same approach. There is standard, the standard is used, but selections made are different. So these meters are actually not interchangeable. So if we want to achieve the interoperability of devices and interchangeability of devices, this companion standard would have to become globally adopted. And here IDIS companion specification has potential to become with wider adoption, but it is important to say that the reason why the companion specifications are today so different lies also in the mandate. We can discuss this further later on with the question about European Commission. What is the background that companion specifications have been developed in a different way? So for me, it is very important how to reach global adoption of the companion specification. And here I would not say which companion specification. IDIS is possible to have this.
Yes, but Mr. Kozole, beside you are the chairman of the technical committee of DLMS, you are a member of Senelec and IC working groups, and also you were a member of European Commission standardization mandate.
Yes,
And,
yes, this is true. And
what
this
is
is
your
exactly
experience in work in that mandate?
yes. When we observe mandate had very strong requirement for interoperability. It has been expressed very strongly, but at that time there was so many standards already applied. So the background to have multiple solutions for the solving the mandate led to the consensus how this interoperability is actually described. You know, interoperability was described on the level of semantic interoperability on the data model. What does it mean? This means that it was agreed that data model is one thing that need to be one and defined, but and also the standard should be one for this, and this was then concluded, and consensus was that DLMS COSEM is this standard, which will be the standard data model for smart metering. But when we come then to the practical deployments in member states, we see that selections from the standard were different, and this is important to say that. So, as I said before, if you observe, for example, French situation or Spanish situation, the selections are so different that cannot be interchanged. So you cannot exchange meters from one country to another country. So, and this was basically on the level of decision what, and the consensus in the mandate, what interoperability means. You know, because a lot of things was discussed. Do we define interoperability as such, as semantic interoperability, or we seek for exchangeability?
Okay, your opinion is that we need clearly defined mandate for one standard.
No, I believe it was at that time, this was the consensus, and the results and the outcome of the mandate was according to this consensus. So we see that set of standards has been defined, and this set of standards also allow different member states to make selections from this standard. And
okay.
At this point, the mandate actually was fulfilled and has been in 2012. It has been actually put on hold. It is as fulfilled.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kozole. Mr. Brunner, what is your opinion? Why did we miss the chance with mandate M441 to have one universal standard? And do we need a new directive to reach one standard in the EU? Mr. Brunner. Mr. Brunner. Okay, maybe we have some problem in the connection. Oh no, okay.
Yes, I couldn't understand your question.
I will repeat. Why did we miss the chance with mandate M441 to have one universal standard? And do we need a new European Commission directive to achieve one standard in European market? Do you hear me?
Yeah, partially I could hear you. Can Can you hear me clear?
Yes, I hear you clear. Okay, maybe we have some problem in the connection. Maybe to ask Mr. Kafol and try later with Mr. Brunner.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, it's more a view from the manufacturer's side, because the utilities are relatively passive in this field. Yeah, because we can do the specification, we can say interoperability as such, but we cannot define exactly what kind of interoperability. What is a typical perspective, let's say, of the utility, and what we discuss? This is valid for the small utility, of course, that we have seamless connection of all IoT devices, which is smart meter, to the system. That is like a phone that let's say, you can use in any country and so on. Why is this not done? I don't know. Probably because this is more of the bigger utilities. They do not have probably this kind of problem, because their environment is very large. And the smaller utilities are probably less powerful to achieve something.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kozole, what do you think? Do we need the help from European Commission and new directive to reach one standard in the EU?
For me, the mandate has reached very important results, and if you see how the initiatives like IDIS companion specification were issued, they did not introduce new standards. They introduced companion specifications which use standards, and with commitment to build interoperable systems. And saying this, I don't believe the new mandate is needed. I just believe that universal standard will, for interoperable systems, will require to have a companion specification reaching wider use. And I believe this will happen also as part of the standard development.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brunner.
Yes, I'm back online.
Yes, we have the problem in communication. I'm not sure, did you hear the previous speakers, but the question is the European Commission help a new directive needed to reach one standard in the EU?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if this needs the help of a new mandate in the European Union. I think it needs maybe the European Union follow up with what has been mandated and look into the different countries and see what happens, and also take the lessons learned out of what has been done the last several years. Because, you know, when the whole journey started with the mandate, as Milan told quite clear before, there has been a lot of open areas in it, and how to define this standard, how to define interoperability. And as we went on with IDIS, we said it's not only interoperability, it's also interchangeability, to make sure that you can exchange things in between. And I think the whole countries, all the things happened in parallel, you know. There has been the mandate to start with smart meter rollout. Some countries have been running quite early, like the Nordics, some of Eastern Europe. Western Europe has been very hesitant on this. Everybody started on a different level. We got this mandate 441, where also a lot of inputs have been given, and it's always difficult then to oversee the whole thing. Now, after 10 years, I think things are much more clear. I think utilities understand much more what they really would like to do and what they need and what to fulfill the basics of the mandate. And the manufacturers understand more where the train is leading to. I think it would help if the mandate gets maybe a bit reshaped and recalled into the European Union to make sure that everybody understands that also the regulatory bodies in the different countries look into this and find a common language on it. But I don't think we need a new one. I think just reiterate, shape it a bit, and make sure that the regulatory bodies in all the countries understand these things better, so that the customer can make most use out of it. Because to be honest, I think the whole thing is needed to make sure that the customers, the utilities, get most out of it, right?
Yes.
And that the end user can profit at the end from all this, what we do.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I will use opportunity. We have Mr. Juzo Kmeti in audience, and he will enjoy us, and we will give him 1-2 minutes to give us his insight about mandate. Thanks to Mr. Juzo Kmeti.
You have to unmute yourself, probably.
Mr. Kmeti.
It will be able to hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Ah, yes, we hear you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so welcome to everybody. Yeah, yes, I was working on the mandate as convener of standardization 13 working group 2, and I had the opportunity to work with many people from the European Union, including Milan. We worked a lot together. And yes, the main achievement of the mandated work was to say that there is one standard data model, which is COSM, the object model. And we standardize some communication profiles like the GC PLC and the Prime PLC profile, and also some others. And I think that what we have to understand that at the end, for each project, you need certain use cases. And you realize the use cases by selecting certain features or a set of objects from the COSM standard. And what was not achieved during this standardization mandated work is the standardization of a set of use cases. There was an intention, but probably there were not enough resources to do that. But if we could define use cases which are not mandatory, but which can be chosen, what are the use cases a certain utility needs for, and we could standardize how to realize a certain use case with COSM object, I think that would be a good step forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kmeti.
Pleasure.
So I think that we can agree that it was the beginning of massive rollout, and we have different pilots, different beginnings in different countries. So today we have several standards in France, in Italy, in Spain. We have IDIS in many countries. And generally, now we can continue to work on integration of that standards, and in the future achieve one standard in the EU to take the best of all protocols and standards. And probably for that action, we need a strong integration force, and probably European Commission is a right address for that. Okay, then we can continue. We have also the question interesting from the audience. Do you think IDIS Association should be expanded by inclusion of the utilities? I will ask first Mr. Brunner.
Yeah, that's indeed an interesting question, you know, because at the end, the utilities are the customers of those standards, right? The users of those standards. We had a lot of discussions at the beginning of IDIS setup. Should we let utilities join IDIS Association or not? And obviously we decided against. We said there should be manufacturers be able to join. And the main reason for this has been that we said, okay, looking at DLMS, and I think Kozole and Milan could confirm this, and see that we have a lot of utilities in there, a lot of manufacturer. You get input from everybody, and you try to group all the things in it, and then the variations are too high, and there is no commitment from the manufacturer that they will include each and everything in their equipment after all, right? And that's why we founded IDIS, to close the gap which DLMS has in there, to make the choice clear, what needs to be done to make it interoperable. That's been the reason we said, okay, manufacturers need to commit to produce what they decide here in the standardization, whereof utilities, they will ask for, give me this, we would like to have this, which sometimes is not always possible to create in one and the same equipment or standards. Nevertheless, we have not been allowing utilities to become member, but we always consulted with utilities, and we did pilot projects with utilities, and we value their input, right? I think is a position which we need to rethink at IDIS, to see if we could bring up a part of the IDIS association, where we say in this side the utilities can become member as a discussion board, as a sound board, as to see how well does it resonate on them, and get their inputs. But I think the standards as such should be then adhered by the manufacturers in IDIS, and they should do those stuff. So it's a ambivalent stuff, right? Yes, we need utilities, we need their input, we need their opinion, and we also need some of the utilities as opinion maker for the rest of utilities, because utilities believe utilities. Utilities don't believe so much in manufacturers, right, when it comes to the discussion. So it's an important part. Okay. But we need to be careful in how to handle this inside the association.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kafol, are you here?
Yes. Yes. I'm having difficulties with Wi-Fi, so I switch off the video.
Okay, no problem. Do you hear opinion of Mr. Brunner?
I believe that somehow the utilities should be included, but I think you would have too much of a work with, let's say, all that interest and so on. So it would be maybe a good idea to include somebody that is covering all the utilities, such as Eurelectric, or some association of utilities, not utilities itself. Otherwise, you would have millions of utilities, and it's impossible to do anything on that. But I think that a company like Eurelectric, which have relatively good influence on the EU floor, would be beneficial in terms that it could also do the recommendations for all the public utilities, also towards the European Commission and downwards. So I think that some kind of a association of utilities, yes. Utilities by themselves, no.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Kozole, what is your opinion about this question? And I will expand the question. In DLMS, you have different types of memberships for small and medium manufacturers. What do you think about applying also that options for IDIS Association?
My opinion is that as today, IDIS Association has been constituted with commitment to build and deploy interoperable smart meters. This was one of the important commitments that members of the IDIS Association made. And saying this, the members are smart meter manufacturers. And however, it is important that utilities contribute to the work of the IDIS Association, and especially in IDIS package 3, when we have developed, we have considered and discussed this with many utilities, and so that contribution to the IDIS package 3 was broader. So how to achieve then to the membership, formal membership of utilities in IDIS Association? This is again a question, and as Dieter explained, it is ambivalent. It is not so easy to answer this question, and I would even not dare to predict will this go in this direction or not. But important for me is that there is a way that utilities can contribute to such use of the standard. And to the second part of question, DLMS User Association has different levels of membership. Yes, and members on each level are from different fields. They are manufacturers, they are utilities, they are integrators, they are very different users of the DLMS specifications and standards. So this is mainly on the level how the contribution and participation in the work of the organization is structured. So different levels are not divided per type of the organization. So you can find in promoters, you can find utilities and manufacturers. So that's why I would say this does not directly apply to IDIS Association.
Okay, but generally we can apply that not only for manufacturers but also for utilities.
It could be the way, yes, but it is an important decision of the IDIS Association.
Yeah. And also we have a very interesting suggestion from audience. Hello, what about creating a user group open to utilities? So it is on the line of previous speakers. One suggestion is suggestion of Mr. Kafol to have inside some association of utilities, but also IDIS can form a user group which will consist the companies which use IDIS specification on the field, utilities and manufacturers. Okay, so we can conclude this question, and for the end, the final question, something about future. Do you think that it is possible to define a single open interoperable standard? An example, standard for the realization, IDIS standard for the realization of smart cities before mass implementation, as we see it in the field of mobile telephone and communication in general, and thus avoid the scenario with many different protocols that happen with smart metering projects. Who is interesting to give us opinion first? Maybe.
Let me start if no one would like. I think first of all, smart cities needs to have a clear definition. At the moment, everything is smart city, and there are hundreds of pilots and hundreds of things to be done. I feel it's like at the beginning, at the change of the century, when we started about smart metering. Everybody understood something else, and everybody tried to push his understanding over it. I think we need to see that we get a more plausible, clear picture about what is a smart city, or maybe better to say smart infrastructure. What does belong to it and what not, and what groups are in there. And I think it is utmost important, if these things should be success everywhere, that there are some common standards which work. And I think there is a need to get those things done. And you see also, if you look at the e-mobility, how long it took to make a standard that the connectors are now standardized in the way that we have now, I think, 3 different connectors worldwide. And we started with some 100 of connectors at the beginning, right? If there is no pressure from one side, the bodies who put the laws about those things, on the other side, the industry group, the associations who sit together and say, what is needed, what should we do? That's an important part. You know, I think there is a huge need of getting this thing standardized. There is also a wide field in it, in smart cities, smart infrastructures, and there are opportunities and possibilities which we don't even think and see today. So it's also a developing side, and as earlier we can step in with an open, transparent standard for the communications, as better it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brunner. Mr. Kozole, what is your opinion?
I believe it is possible to define a single standard, an open standard for interoperable devices. And as explained before, and here I will speak from the point of view of DLMS User Association. What is happening in DLMS User Association? We have considered that smart metering standardization and DLMS protocol need to be extended with we call smart metering profile. And for this reason, DLMS User Association has created a smart metering working group to handle this part of the standardization. And this has also important impact on the certification of the devices. When we observed the certification for compliance to the DLMS standard, it was mainly about is it compliant to the core set of standards, but it was not tested or certified against the companion specifications. Now, smart metering profile direction is to add compatibility to some selections from the standard which build then interoperable smart metering device. And this is one important aspect, that there is ongoing work which has started already in DLMS User Association for the smart metering part. But this is not the only part. We have also started working groups for mobility, for EV charging stations. We have started the HAMS working group. These are all areas where we touch the interoperability of other devices than smart meters. And here I believe that through the different profiles which can be compatibility tested or certified, this can be achieved as a global standard. So, but this work is ongoing, and it's hard to say more at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kozole. Mr. Kafol, what is your opinion about smart cities and standardization in that area?
I think the smart cities, there are many different applications, more or less the proof of concepts. They're not real smart cities in a large scale. But what I think is that if there is an interoperable standard and a clear structure, many public cities or municipalities would go into this. At this point, there's many, let's say, solutions from this and that, from Huawei to the French, German companies, and so on, which are all, let's say, which cover or which solve part of the issue and not all of the issue. If there will be a standard platform in terms of that, this could be seamless. You could seamlessly integrate many devices into this. I think it would start this business in larger scale. It would help the idea of smart city.
Okay, thank you. Probably we need also strong integration force in that area from the side of utilities, from the side of manufacturers, strong standardization association like IDIS Association, and help of European Commission to achieve that. Okay, we have had an excellent topic to discuss today. We have told about shaping the future. Without adapt, you all have smartphones. It's a common thing nowadays, but walking around with a supercomputer in your pocket was science fiction 30 years ago. Smart metering, smart city, and interoperability are the same stage today. IDIS Association is trying to find a way to use devices from different manufacturers together. The state of IoT technology is that you can control appliances and devices in your home. Now imagine managing electricity, water, gas, heating, cooling, transport, and other aspects of urban living, all from the same power grid at the same time. To reach that state, we need a universal European standard, and we need a way to include everyone in our universal standard. But with the help of the IDIS Association and our expert guests, it's something we can overcome. Think of smart metering, smart city as an excellent opportunity. You with an interest in smart metering, smart city, have one of the keenest interests in human life, and the children of tomorrow are going to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Technology should improve human life and condition, and there is nothing better to making the world a better place. Thanks to Mr. Kafol, Mr. Kozole, and Mr. Brunner. Thanks to audience. Thanks to Mr. Belec. Let's shape the future together.
Yeah, thank you, Jovan. If I might just say the final words, thanks to all the participants, also for my side, and also the panelists. Thank you for your fruitful words and thoughts on the topics. Thank you for all the questions which you posted in the chat. We will pick them up and follow us on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure that some of the questions will be answered in the news or the infos posted on LinkedIn. And I will conclude with this, that I will invite you already for the second webinar. And I can give you a hint that in this one, the main topic will be the customer experience of applying or using IDIS specification in their own projects. So thank you all, and see you next time.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Bye.